Hello everyone, this is Jonathan Little for PokerNews.com, and today I'm going to review a hand that I played in a 5,000 Euro buy-in European Poker Tour main event. And this is from very early in the tournament. Our opponent in this hand is an active 40-year-old guy. So we start with 30,000 chips, I believe. You can see I chipped up to 32,000. And our opponent has chipped up to 45,000, so he's killing it. He raises under the gun to 425 at 75, 150. The blinds are listed right up here. And it folds around to me with pocket threes and the big blind. And I think calling here is the only play that has any merit. We certainly don't want to re-raise. Folding is way too weak. A lot of people fold in the spot because they think that they are, quote unquote, behind at the moment. And if they're behind, they do not want to put money in the pot. But being behind is fine as long as you have huge implied odds. And this is a very good example of a spot where we're investing relatively little to potentially win a ton when we flop a set. And that is what we do. So it comes Jack 6-3, 2 diamonds. I'm going to check this. I think my opponent's going to bet a ton of the time. A lot of players will bet pretty much their whole range in this scenario, meaning if he has ace-king, he's going to bet it. If he has ace-5 suited, he's going to bet. If he has queen-jack suited, he's going to bet. He's going to be betting pretty much everything. And you don't really want to lead, because if you lead and your opponent folds, that kind of implies he's folding a hand that was drawing completely dead. And you never really want to let your opponent fold when he's drawing completely dead. So I like to check, and this is a board that I think we can easily check raise. We can have a lot of the various flush draws. Some players also check raise top pair, so we are very happy putting money in the pot in this scenario. So he bet 600. I'm going to make it something like 1,700. I think that's pretty fine and standard. He has to call 1,100 more into what is now going to be a 3,500 chip pot or so. So he's getting reasonable odds to stick around, and I think he will most of the time. Now, to my surprise, he made it 4,200. Of course, I don't know he has pocket kings. If I know he has pocket kings, we're just going to keep clicking it back over and over and over until we get the money in. But whenever he raises here, you have to pause and ask yourself, what is this player really trying to get a lot of money in the pot with? The hands that make the most sense are pocket jacks and pocket sixes, which we are crushed by. But this player is pretty active, which may imply that he is capable of overplaying a hand like pocket kings, maybe ace-jack, something like that. However, I thought if I was to re-raise, say I was to make it 8,500, I thought my opponent may play kind of tight and just fold, and that would be a disaster. So in this scenario, given that I could be crushed and I don't want to let my opponent off the hook, I think calling is the only play that has any merit. We're never really trying to fold. I guess I just want to make that clear, that you're not trying to fold your set. You're trying to figure out a way to get your money in versus the widest range possible. And a lot of people are afraid to go to the turn because there are a few draws available, but the odds of my opponent having 5-4 are pretty low. And if he does have a flush draw, he's not he doesn't have a very high chance to hit it on the turn. So turns a king, not really what I want to see, because now notice ace-jack is going to show down, or slow down. Pocket queens is going to play a little bit slow as well. Pocket kings now beats me. Pocket aces is still going to bet, but we weren't so worried about that. And jacks and sixes are obviously still going to bet. So I like to check, and my opponent bets 6,150 into the 9,300 pots. And again, I'm not really trying to fold. I am going to call and hope to get closer to showdown. But when my opponent does bet the turn, I'm really starting to narrow his range to only sets and aces, maybe a weirdly played ace-king, maybe ace-king of diamonds, and good flush draws. Maybe ace-queen of diamonds, ace-10 of diamonds, queen-10 of diamonds, etc. So I think there are enough hands that I can conceivably beat. Also, my opponent may just be horrible, right? If he's just horrible, then I should probably, well, I'm still going to stick around. Horrible meaning he may be bluffing with a lot of junk. So river's a 4 of diamonds, not what I want to see at all. I check, and now my opponent bets 6,200. If he bet big on the river, I think I'm going to fold this hand, because notice I now lose to all the flush draws that got there on the river, and I still lose to the sets, which probably will value bet. When he bets this small size, I think most people would still do this with a hand like king-jack, and also pocket aces, so there are a few realistic hands our opponent could have. He could also have some random bluffs, not many though, because notice the prime bluffing hands he could have were the flush draws and all those got there. So if we just count out the number of combinations he could possibly have of nut hands versus bluffs, it's kind of hard to find very many bluffs. But the issue with this is we're getting great pot odds. We have to put in 6,000 to try to win 26,000. So to figure out how often you need to win, you take 6,000 divided by 32,000, or I guess 33,000, and it's about 18% of the time. So even though this is a large bet, I do imagine I'm going to win 18% of the time or more versus this type of player. It is worth mentioning that in tournaments, you usually want to have some sort of a significant edge, especially when you're making any sort of a play for a large amount of chips. And 6,000 is a lot of chips to potentially lose early in this tournament. But I think here, this guy may show up with a random ace-king. He may show up with pocket aces. And he could also just have a really ridiculous bluff that doesn't make a lot of sense. So I think here I have to call. If he bet bigger, though, like I said, such that I needed to win maybe like 30% of the time or 35% of the time, then I could see folding being acceptable, because I really do lose to all hands that make any real sense. Some people may look at this hand from my perspective and say, well, clearly you should have just re-raised the flop and made him fold his pocket kings because the king got there. But that's not really that big of a deal, because notice he had 2 outs, right? And when your opponent's drawing to 2 outs, you are happy to keep them in the pot. So this is one of the times where playing your hand a little bit slowly can cost you. But in this spot, I think it is by far the best play. If your opponent's drawing to 2 outs, just let him draw. He's going to think he has the best hand a lot of the time on the turn anyway. And things are going to work out really well for you in the long run. Sometimes, though, whenever you do take a more of a pot control line, you get outdrawn. And when you get outdrawn, sometimes you have to pay. So this is one of the spots where we did get outdrawn and we did pay. I think my opponent certainly could have, or certainly should have just called the flop check raise. I do not think he should have re-raised the flop, because that really opens him up to getting crushed whenever I have a set. And that was a scenario where he had already bloated the pot to 10,000 chips going to the turn, roughly 10,000 chips. And I'm almost certainly going to stack him if he does not improve. So a very large percentage of the time we're going to stack him, and a small percentage of the time we're going to lose some chips. All in all, though, I'm happy with the play. Maybe I should fold the river, but yeah, it's close. Let me know what you think in the comments section below. Thank you very much for watching. If you enjoy this type of video, please let the people at Poker News know, so they will allow me to continue making these hand videos for you. Thanks for watching, and I will talk to you next time.